Hi, my name is Taylor Backman. I'm a senior evangelist at Zoho. Today I'm going to walk you through our upcoming Zoho One release, which is scheduled for October 19th. We ask that you please do not share this recording or any of the information within it until the release date. So let's go ahead and start looking at the release. Before we do that, we'll just make a few passing notes of how things are going for Zoho. Business is going really well and we're continuing to grow. We have 10,000 employees, over 500,000 customers, and over 70 million users. So things are humming along. A few years ago, when we launched Zoho One, we started developing this concept of the operating system for business. And it's something we've worked really hard in explaining and developing. We're really excited to see that a number of other companies are also taking up this same language and also wanting to position themselves as operating systems for the different kinds of software that they provide. We think that this is a really good direction, and we ultimately have found that as we've developed the operating system concept, that it's really about unification. And when we talk about unification, it needs to be something that's done at every level of the technology stack. This unification has ultimately been really appreciated by our customers, and they've had a lot of really nice things to say about what they're seeing from us. So we're really, glad to see that, obviously. As we have continued to work through this unification of the operating system and of Zoho One, we've seen it reflected in the growth of the product. Zoho One now has more than 40,000 customers and is the most popular suite in the Zoho offering. Again, this is a product that was launched in 2017, so we've seen really substantial growth year over year, and it's worth noting that for 2021, this is a partial number. When we look at the distribution of customers, we find we have a lot of different types of customers using Zoho One, lots of different types of businesses. The largest customer has over 32,000 employees, and there are increasingly more and more of these larger customers that are using Zoho One. We think that shows a lot of upmarket potential, and we're really excited to continue seeing that develop. When we look at customers by industry, you see that we're very strong in the services side, but as we read this chart from going clockwise, we see that we're also playing in the real estate area, retail, banking and financial services, manufacturing, and so forth. So we're really excited to see such a wide range of customers being able to take advantage of this, and we expect that trend to continue to grow. When we look at the geographic distribution, we have customers in over 160 countries, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the more important markets for us. But when we see, in addition to this growth of organizations adopting Zoho One, we're seeing that there's also a growth in usage of the different apps that are included in Zoho One. So we're now up to about 21 average apps, and this is up from about 18 to 19 over the last couple of years. When we talk about these applications, there's 45 different apps included in Zoho One that cover all of the major business functions, from the front office to communication and collaboration tools to the back office to custom application development and business intelligence. This is just a word cloud here that shows some of the more popular apps, things like CRM or Analytics, our BI tool, Books, our double entry accounting system, Click, our team communication platform. So these are some of the most used apps that we have. When we look at how customers ultimately find their way to Zoho One, there are a lot of different paths that they take. And these paths depend on a number of factors, including their size, industry, where they're located, and the particular problems that they're looking to solve. The big story is that ultimately all of these paths lead to Zoho One, and so we think that's very encouraging. So when we look at small businesses, for example, we find that they are more often or most likely to just adopt Zoho One straight away. And we think this is because these customers are typically using a combination of free tools. They're using the basic versions of paid tools. They've maybe made an investment in one area. They have a lot of manual processes. So when they see Zoho One, they see something that can really transform their business, and they jump on in and start really updating what they're doing. When we look at some of the larger customers, we see that they have much more complicated deployments, and they are a lot more sophisticated with the way they're using different software. So that means they take different approaches. This is one path that we see where they maybe come to Zoho for one of the applications that they are missing, or something they're looking to replace or improve upon in their deployment. And as they use that and they see success with that tool, they end up adopting more tools from Zoho. They then end up using a suite because they see a number of the related tools fit into a suite. So for example, our customer engagement platform called CRM Plus, or our back office platform called Finance Plus, they might use one of those. And then as they start mixing and matching tools with that platform, and then outside of it, for example, they're using the customer engagement platform for some of their sales and customer service. They then want to add in a digital signature tool that exists outside of that, and then some other ones, and they find that Zoho One is the best way to go. So what we're seeing then is that each of the apps that Zoho offers, which is 50 different apps, serve as entry points into the Zoho offering, and then that leads into an adoption of more apps and eventually to Zoho One. Another common path we see are customers bypassing the suites or the platforms and jumping straight to Zoho One after realizing that they need multiple apps. So that might start with having something like CRM, and then adding some other apps, and then coming to Zoho One. Another thing that we see quite often is customers, they come to us with a complex set of requirements because they understand what their processes need to be, and that requires them purchasing multiple apps. And when they do that, they're maybe using one app for most of the use case, but then they're using bits and pieces of other apps. They find that's a good deal for what they're doing, and then as they start using that, they grow into it and use more of Zoho One. Now, one of the questions we get is, what is the most common entry point? And again, this really depends on size, industry, and geography. So in the US, for example, taking the geography point, we see that CRM is a pretty common entry point. But when we look at Brazil, for example, we're pretty well known as an email service. So we find that Zoho Mail is a common entry path into the Zoho ecosystem that leads to Zoho One. In the Middle East, there's been some tax reform where businesses are required to file digitally. Our books team, which is our accounting program, they jumped on that and they got in line with the compliance, and that really boosted the popularity of those services in those regions. So in those regions, we see a lot of customers coming to us through the accounting side. So it really just depends. One customer that we can talk about that has a similar path is Arctic Spas. They manufacture, sell, and support high-end spas. They're based out of Canada. They've been in business for quite some time, over 350 employees. They do not have a sales team, and instead they sell through their dealers, which are all over the place. When Arctic Spas came to us, they started with CRM in 2013. They had migrated over from Salesforce. They then adopted CRM Plus in 2014, and then about a year after Zoho One came out, they jumped on that. So starting from their initial CRM usage, they've expanded in a number of ways. They started by expanding out on the service side, adding a help desk, adding Assist, which does remote assistance, and other tools. They then started adding marketing tools like email marketing, social media marketing, website optimization. They'd already been using LinkedIn, so they integrated that into Zoho. They wanted to use Twilio to do customer interactions over text message, so they were able to extend Zoho through our marketplace and bring that channel into their deployment. They, some other, I think, important points here, they remain a firm user of Gmail and don't really have any intention of leaving. So we've been able to integrate that into the other Zoho tools they're using. And when it comes to something like the team communication platform they're using, which allows them to do all sorts of instant messaging, audio and video calling, group messaging, and all that, they've used the channel component of Click to set up chat channels with all of their different dealerships. So that way they're able to have a nice collaborative relationship with all those dealerships, really have a closer idea of what's happening on the ground with the people who are selling their spas, and they can then push those that information, whether it's a change in strategy that's needed or a common problem that's being recognized. So for them, a collaboration tool is really being leveraged as more of a sales tool. When we come through the rest of their offering or deployment rather, or the way they're utilizing the Zoho offering, there is Creator, which is the custom application development platform. They've used this to build things like custom commission calculation apps, for example. And they're also a user of Zoho Flow, which is the Zoho integration platform that makes it really easy to not only build new integrations within Zoho, but then also connect with third-party services as well. And all of this data ultimately gets pulled into the BI tool Analytics, which makes it very easy for them to visualize all of their Zoho and third-party data in combination with the custom solutions that they've built. So there's a number of things that we can see on this slide when we kind of dig more into this use case. One thing I'll point us to is the second bullet point in the solutions and outcomes section. Arctic Spas was able to automate lead distribution, which saved them 40 hours a week and gave them an increase of up to 480 grand in additional revenue. They increased from 300 leads a week to thousands, with a 15% increase in lead conversion and deal closure. So some really solid numbers, some really fantastic outcomes, and we're really, really excited to see customers like Arctic Spas doing so well with Zoho One. One thing that they'll tell you if you ask them is that customization options are really important to them, and they have found everything that they've needed in terms of being able to do what they want with Zoho One without having to compromise on their vision. So we think, again, that's really, really great, and we're very proud to be able to support this great company. Another customer that we could also talk about is a company called Counterculture Coffee. They're a specialty coffee roaster out of Durham, North Carolina. They've been in business for quite some time. They have over 120 employees, and they have tasting sites in 13 cities. When they came to Zoho, they started with CRM in 2016, and then in 2020, they adopted Zoho One. Now their deployment is different than the one that we saw previously. They have added email marketing, they've added forms, they've added a help desk, but the things that really jump out to me here is that they are really a committed G Suite user using the Google Workplace or Workspace or whatever that's called these days. And we think that's really great because when we look at Google, we see 15 different apps within the G Suite with 10 different integration points in each of those apps. So we've worked really hard to find and build the best integrations that allow these services to work together really well. And for Counterculture Coffee, that is very much the case, and they're very happy with that. Similarly, on the finance side, Counterculture is using NetSuite as their ERP system. They're very happy with it, NetSuite. They don't have any intention of moving, so we've been able to integrate really well with that back office system to support everything they need. And again, a big part of that is the business intelligence, which is able to bring in all of that data into the BI tool, visualize it nicely so they can figure out what's going on in the organization and what they need to do to keep hitting their goals. There's some another really great pieces of information in here when we look more deeply at their case study. The last bullet point under the solutions and outcome area, they've self-reported a 15% improvement in productivity. We can look for more information on what exactly that means if you're interested. This was a number that they gave to us, and we're really glad that they're seeing that kind of benefit in their organization. One thing that they'll say when you ask them is that for them, the adoption of Zoho is continuing to grow and continues to climb because as they do, it reinforces the value of having Zoho One to begin with. And they find that as they are doing that, their jobs are getting easier, and that their people see that, which makes it easier for them to keep deploying Zoho, and more people keep wanting to use Zoho internally. So we think that's a really great sign, and we find that virtuous cycle is what allows companies to expand their usage. It cuts out all of the difficulty of going out and finding another vendor and then going out and having to convince everyone internally that this is going to work and that it's going to be worth your time and it will improve your job. Customers start seeing more and more Zoho, and they start to think, oh good, we're about to have a better time. So we think that's a really great sign, and is a big part of what's driving the adoption rates of Zoho One. So as we've been talking about unification and we've been talking about business, we're talking about Zoho One being really the unifier of business. And we know, of course, that integration is very important, and certainly at the end of the day, customers want their data to connect and they want things to work, and that's always the most important part. But what we notice is that to get beyond that, to get beyond just those initial benefits of making things work, really requires a perspective of unification, and that means having to unify at every layer of the technology stack, which is what we're doing. So we're offering unified infrastructure that we develop, manage, and control, which has all these in-house, tight-knit, scalable components that make up our infrastructure. When we move up the stack into something like storage, we get into things like databases. We've developed a number of custom databases, and we've then unified those databases under unified data models, so that way all of the data that's being generated within the operating system can be used appropriately and can be optimized. As we move up the stack further, we get to what we call services. And services are really the byproduct of our really hard and long R&D work. And so these services end up being things like AI, analytics, and so forth, and become used and leveraged by the different apps that are in the stack. So they enhance what these applications can do and improve the functionality for their particular purpose. When we move up the stack further, we get to platforms, and this is where everything really starts to come together, and we are able to offer unique solutions for CX, EX, ERP, create the layer of collaboration that's necessary, create the level of the layer of customization that is necessary for organizations to really be able to adopt everything. As we know, the devil is always in the details when it comes to software and making it work. So all of this is ultimately inherited within the operating system, within Zoho One, and it, in a sense, is the result of this unification. It is the result of this vertical integration where privacy has been thought about at every layer, and that's something, of course, that we think is very important. So when we get to the meat of this particular release, we have 3 new services, 3 updated services, 5 new apps, and this is all packaged in an entirely new experience. So we'll go ahead and dive into those services. So as I mentioned a moment ago, services are really the result of long-term R&D that become these services that are or this technology that are used as services by the rest of our software teams, so that way they can improve things that they're doing. So analytics, search, AI, a directory, telephony, we think of all of these things as services. Now, in addition to services being internal back-end or sometimes front-end tools that customers are going to make use of, there are also things that integrate with third-party services or applications as well. So for example, our directory system that we have that underlays all of Zoho One integrates with Active Directory. So if customers want to use AD to manage everything, they can, and then that just pushes into our directory, and then all the changes get reflected in Zoho One. When it comes to something like analytics, for example, our analytics service is pulling in all of the data from all of the Zoho apps as they're being used, because we understand all of those data relationships. But analytics also works with other business apps, whether it's Salesforce, Marketing Hub, etc., any of those different tools, as well as custom databases as well. So again, third-party integrations are really important, and telephony is probably another great example of that. What we're able to do with telephony is provide what we call the phone bridge as a service, which is the single integration point for all of the telephony providers that integrates as at one point into the Zoho offering, and then you can just go in as a customer and just basically enable where you want telephony to be applied across the system. So there's been some significant improvements to existing services, and this is the best place probably to start. On the analytics side, we have 1,500 pre-built reports and dashboards. And as I mentioned, what's really great about this is that all of these pre-built reports and dashboards are there across all of the different tools that are offered within Zoho One. And so as a customer starts to use those different apps, the data is automatically fed into these reports and dashboards. Data is automatically blended, giving really sophisticated intelligence reporting. This is just something that's happening out of the box for our customers. One area where we've made some improvements is with the way that we're combining analytics and AI. So for example, you've already been able to ask Zia, using this feature that we had launched, in your natural language for different reports that you want to see. Now that is something that we've brought into a conversational interface. And we think that's really, really wonderful because it is the next step in allowing users or customers to just get exactly what they need. So I'm going to actually quickly just jump into a demo of that very quickly so we can see that. This is a dashboard that is available in Zoho One. And if we wanted to ask Zia for some information, we can do that. So for example, we can ask Zia for some revenue numbers. And this is a number that gets generated very easily. This is something that's been existing. But when we switch over into the conversational mode, which is the new component here, we see what the new experience looks like. So show me revenue, great, something that we were able to do, no problem. But now what if we want to drill into those numbers and we want to see it by month? Well, now we can ask that and Zia will automatically fetch the data and represent it for us. But what if we want to then change that and we just want it as a bar chart? Then Zia is able to do that. Notice that we are building on the context that's already been established. Revenue by month as a bar chart. We haven't needed to re-ask that every single time. So now we can also just go say, well, let's drill into this quarter specifically. And there we go. So we'll get this now quarter information. We can edit this very easily. We can save it and we can add it to a dashboard in just about 2 clicks. So that's really the power of where we're going with these conversational analytics. Similarly, another thing that's been added by combining these analytics and AI services is forecasting. And so now there is out-of-the-box forecasting across the operating system. So as data is being put in, we will automatically model it and we will be able to give projections on what those trends are pointing to. Now, another service that we're really excited about and that we've had for some time now is search. Search is a unified and actionable search across all of the apps in the entire operating system. So when you put in an email, for example, like we're seeing in this GIF, you see that all of the different areas where this email exists across the operating system pops up, whether that's in a mail, in a chat, in an invoice, or in a CRM record, or in the HR tool. All of this stuff is being pulled in. On the left, there's the different apps that are listed, and you can then filter by that. So we've already had this really great enterprise search that is available. So what we're doing is we are leveraging the NLP and AI technology that you see in the analytics side and using that in the search component. So now, using this combination of enterprise search with AI and NLP, you can just search, show me mails from the VP of sales, show me documents shared by my team, open tickets submitted by John Doe, etc. And when we look at what these requests really entail, we see they're actually pretty complicated, and it's required a lot of work to be able to do this. So when someone says, show me documents, we have to understand that documents are a resource and that there's a particular set of documents that every employee is going to have permission rights to be able to see. So that's something that has to be understood. When we see the word shared, we have to interpret that as a contextual action that's already been taken on those documents and be able to deal with that component as well. And when we look at something like my team, this is a subjective statement. We have to understand who the user is and then what team they're on by understanding the org structure. And of course, when we say my team, we have to understand that that might even be different from saying my department, right? Teams, departments, and then the ways that individual companies are going to use these terms are all going to fluctuate. So it requires having not only the understanding of the org structure, but then the ways that specific terms get used within the organization. Similarly, when we look at another example, we can point to just the end of this to Scott. When someone says, show me tickets assigned to my department by Scott, well, there could be any number of Scotts in the system. There can be multiple colleagues named Scott. There can be customers named Scott. There can be partners named Scott. There can be external users named Scott. There's a whole bunch of different Scotts in the system. So being able to understand who this particular Scott is without any other indication is something that is really important and really challenging. And in fact, being able to do this has required us to introduce a new service, and that's where we're getting into the new aspects of the services that we're introducing. So one such service that's been required for this is called Work Graph. And what Work Graph does is it's a back-end system, or sorry, let me rephrase that. It is a back-end service that is able to understand all of the different data points within the operating system, and is then able to create a graph that is able to map those out along with the strengths of the connections to various things. And this includes contacts, projects, conversations. When we think about conversations, we're looking at then specifically email. We're also looking at chat conversations, right? Conversations can happen in a lot of different areas, so we have to be able to understand all of those as well, plus all these other terms. So that is Work Graph, which again we think is really, really exciting. And we can go ahead and give a kind of a simple demo of really what Work Graph enables us to do. So we're here in Zoho One, and we're going to go over into our inbox. And when we are creating a new mail in our inbox, we're going to send this email to Charles. So we start to type in Charles's name, and you see that there's a number of people that are returned to us. There's Charles Webb and Charles Stone. Now, Work Graph is active here and has put Charles Webb at the front or the top of the list because Work Graph knows that when we are emailing a Charles, we are more likely to be emailing Charles Webb than Charles Stone. So that's why Charles Webb has been put here, which again is just another really convenient way in which by understanding the data within the operating system, we're able to make life easier for the user. When we go over into the team communication platform, though, we see something similar but also different. We do the same search, and in this time, Charles Stone is the person who's on top, followed by Charles Webb. And that is because in this context, Charles Stone is the person that's most likely going to be the one that we're wanting to chat or do a click call with or a click video call with or what have you. So that's another really important thing that the Work Graph is doing. This even also applies to documents, right? As we said, resources have to be something that's understood by the Work Graph. So if we're going to go ahead and share this spreadsheet and we start to put in the search that we've been using, we see Charles Stone is first because that is the Charles that is most likely to receive this. But we see that Tai Chang actually is the second result, someone who we've not even seen in any of these other contexts. And that is because when it comes to sharing a spreadsheet like this, we're more likely to share that with Ty than with anybody else. So again, this is a simple demonstration of what a kind of abstract and back-end service does and how it actually shows up right now within Zoho One. We have, of course, a lot more plans for this, and there's a lot of different things that we know we can do with it. Fundamentally, it requires this understanding when we think about it in the search context. We know that when we've applied the work graph to search, that search needs the work graph. It needs to understand the connections and signals. It needs to understand underlying data models and everything. So this is one example of how the work graph powers another service that continues to grow and become more powerful. But like I said, there's going to be more opportunities for the work graph as well. So since we've gotten into the new services, we'll get into the next one, which is mobile app management. Mobile app management is a subset of a larger category of mobile device management, and it's something that we've seen is increasingly important to help users manage and provision devices, particularly in the context of remote and hybrid work, where you can't just simply go over to somebody's area, ask them for their phone, do some work on it, and then give it back. All of this now can be done from right within Zoho One. And this includes mandating that apps are updated, mandating new operating system installs, setting security policies, etc. So all of this stuff is now going to be available right within Zoho One out of the box. And we're really excited about this because we're bringing basically enterprise IT technology right into Zoho One for every organization that's using it. And this particular service is actually powered by a tool in our sister division called Manage Engine that does MDM for thousands of companies. In fact, Manage Engine services about 3/5 of the Fortune 500. So customers are going to get this subset of features from MDM baked into Zoho One, but then also be able to upgrade and add the rest of MDMM from Manage Engine as they'd like. So the last service we have here is the org dictionary. And the org dictionary is a really simple quality of life improvement that we're really excited about. What it does is it provides the spelling and grammar dictionary that will be pushed to all of the apps in which people do any kind of writing. This is, of course, what generates the red squiggly lines and the green squiggly lines. So what we're doing here is when customers are putting in their products into the inventory system, we're automatically pulling those products into the org dictionary. Why? Because a lot of times products are not named standard terms. They might have interesting spellings. They might be made up terms, like a term like Zoho, for example, or there's any number of kind of things that might be happening there. So now when those things are automatically added to the org dictionary, you don't get a red squiggly line when you are just using the word that is your product while you're writing your marketing copy, for example. Similarly, we will automatically pull in all of the employee names from the HR system. So that again is another really great quality of life feature, particularly when we think about how not everyone's name is automatically in a dictionary. So this will of course make it so that when somebody is working and writing their name, they are not being told it's wrong, which we think is something that has just also really great human impact within the organization as well. So all these org dictionaries, as the different organizations are using them, basically they'll get specified to them, and this of course will be super important to being able to do more sophisticated NLP search. Because when organizations have specific terms that mean specific things to them, we have to be able to understand that context if they're going to use those terms when they're looking for things. So this will make that possible down the road. So that is the services. We'll now get into the apps. It's worth noting that when we started with Zoho One in 2017, we had 30 apps that we were offering. Zoho One now includes 45 apps, so we've seen a substantial increase in the number of applications that are included in Zoho One, in addition to all of this wonderful unification that we've been doing. And these apps, of course, as I said, span many categories. And through the pandemic and figuring out what we needed to do for customers and what we wanted to prioritize, we prioritized these categories, and we'll move through them. The first is digital commerce. This has been something that has been really necessary, we think, given the way that e-commerce has become so important to so many companies, even companies that would never even really been interested in doing this, because they've really had to, because of brick and mortar not being as stable an option through the pandemic. So Zoho Commerce is a product that we were already offering that was not included in Zoho One. Now we're including it because we think that value has to be offered to our customers to really enable them to be successful. And one of the nice things about Commerce is that it is not only integrated with a number of great Zoho and third-party tools, but it's actually baked right into our inventory and order management system. So that means if you're already using inventory, Zoho Inventory, and you turn on Commerce, all of your products will automatically be there for your e-commerce store. Similarly, if you're using e-commerce or the commerce tool for the first time and you haven't used any of the backend tools and you start entering into your products, they'll automatically appear in the inventory system. The inventory system is then already connected and baked into the double entry accounting system. So you can see that there's a really nice way that all of this feeds together. And again, I'll really just very quickly show a few examples of companies that are using Commerce. This company, Viva Pura, sells superfoods, and we think this is pretty neat. I really like their design style here. We've seen that there's a number of different kinds of companies that have been using this. So this is a company that sells building supplies, which again, very different from selling superfoods. So it really suits them well as the superfood company. And my favorite example is this equipment retailer here that sells all sorts of different things. And when we go to like graders, for example, they're selling their $200,000 grader online. You can just add that to the cart. So this, I think, is great. I never knew that anyone could or would buy things like this in this way. But if you already know what the equipment is, then why not? It makes sense to me. So that is e-commerce. And we'll now move over into remote collaboration. So when we look at the tools that we're adding to Zoho One, these are new tools. And the first of them is called Lens. Lens is basically a remote assistance application that really improves site visits and also reduces the need for them altogether. This tool leverages some of our augmented reality technology. So for example, a technician, or maybe just some that's in the field, or maybe just someone who needs some help, is able to open up the camera on their mobile device. They're able to show, for example, this image of this engine. This is fed back to the person that's helping them. The person that's helping them can annotate this, and this will, of course, then appear on the mobile device. Same thing, the person that's there in person can annotate on the screen, and that will be reflected back. So then from there, pictures can be taken, notes, chats, all sorts of things. A full conversation just over voice can happen as well. So we think this is going to be really great, and it really complements our existing remote assistance tools. The second application that we're introducing is called Zoho Learn. And Learn is a LMS system for immersive learning. We found that this is something that a lot of companies could be using and have been asking us for, because we have a number of HR tools, we have a number of collaboration tools, and they'd really like us to be able to close the gap there. So we're very excited about that, particularly as there has been so much remote and hybrid work. Having one space where all of the learning materials are contained and that can be accessed digitally will be really, really, I think, helpful for a number of organizations. And the third tool we have that we're releasing is called Team Inbox, and this is a shared inbox for team that eliminates the need for CCs and duplicate responses. So for example, instead of using one alias and then having to always just, CC every response you give, so that way it becomes apparent in the inbox, so that way other teammates don't accidentally respond thinking it hasn't been gotten to. Now all of this will just be handled in a really nice way in these team inboxes. And as someone who's on multiple teams that has encountered these problems, I'm really excited that we have a new app that is going to be able to solve that problem. And all of this, of course, is possible because of the importance we think of that there is in email and the reasons that there is to keep investing in email, because there's a number of things like this that still remain to be major pain points for organizations. So when we look at the productivity, collaboration, and communication tools, we now see that Zoho One has over 25 applications in it. And we think that that's just really exciting because we're really, of course, excited to continue to help organizations collaborate, particularly with the new challenges of doing that in a remote way. Last app that we're releasing is around data cleanup. And this is a tool that complements our existing BI tools and allows organizations to do all their data preparation, which also includes integrating data, cataloging it, cleansing it, enriching it, and organizing it. This is something that'll work with our existing analytics tool, but it'll also work with third-party tools as well. It'll be able to bring in data from custom databases and then push that out to other third-party tools for visualization if you want to just use it as a middleware. So this is a really fantastic tool with a ton of depth. That's a really, really sophisticated and powerful tool, and we're really excited that it's been brought in because, we always know garbage in, garbage out is the way that data works. We try to do everything that we can for our customers to do the work on the data side of things and connect it for them and visualize it. So now that this tool is there, we'll be able to integrate this into additional services and continue to do more work for those customers while also just offering them a place to do that for themselves. So these are the new applications: Commerce, Lens, Learn, Team Inbox, and Data Prep. This is increasing the value, right? As we said, we started with 30 apps, got to 45, now we'll be up to 50. And it's worth noting that independent companies exist for each of these applications. And this is just something that we are adding to Zoho One free of charge. And the way that customers will be able to access them is that once this is released, they'll see that those are available, they can turn them on and get to work. So here are some more points that some customers have made where they underscore and really show the value of being able to combine all of these different services that they need into a single operating system. And with that idea of continuing to combine and unify, that brings us to the experience. So for the updated experience, the brand new packaging that we're releasing, this is now going to include a unified user interface. And this has been something that customers have really been wanting, and we're really excited to offer it to them. We're even more excited to offer it to them knowing full well that this is just 1.0 for us, and that there is a lot more that we can do and that we're really excited to keep improving on. So the unified user interface is a huge step. It is going to offer unified navigation so they can move through all of these different tools. It gives them a unified calendar where all of the different things that are getting scheduled across the operating system are going into one place. It's giving them unified dashboards with widgets, including pre-built widgets that the individual users can turn on or off depending on what they want to see. And for admins, something that they're going to absolutely love, unified configuration. So it used to be that if you were setting up an integration between CRM and books, for example, you'd have to hop between those different applications and look at the different setup screens to do that. Now you have one panel to do all of the setup, all of the configuration across Zoho One. So this is something that's going to be very exciting for them. Third-party integrations are also being centralized within this unified interface. So take, for example, Salesforce. Salesforce offers a single sign-on. Zoho also offers single sign-on. You can now integrate the Salesforce single sign-on into the Zoho One single sign-on, which means that if you were using Zoho tools alongside Salesforce tools or tools from Google or like Dropbox, those tools can then be brought into Zoho and launched from within Zoho, giving users that one place to do everything, even though they're using apps from multiple vendors. So we think that's very exciting as well. Ultimately, this idea of being able to work well with other services is something that customers time and time again are stressing from us, something that they really appreciate. And this is one customer, Mark Fishman from Call Center Sales Pro, who basically points this out in terms of what we're able to do with bringing data into common dashboards. Now, Call Center Sales Pro, they do call centers for medical offices. They're based out of Tennessee. They have 8 offices, over 200 employees, supporting over 1,000 customers. They have used a lot of Zoho tools here, and rather than go over all the same stuff that we did with Arctic Spas and Counterculture Coffee, I'll just point out that they use a number of the Zoho communication and productivity tools to do their collaboration. That includes WorkDrive, the team, the Unified Document Management System. It includes Click, the team communication tool. It includes the Office suite that we offer, which includes a word processor, spreadsheet, and presentation maker, and so forth. One of the things, though, that's of course important to note is that Call Center Sales Pro uses QuickBooks. So despite all of this Zoho usage they have, they're still really committed to using QuickBooks. So they're able to plug that in, and we're able to integrate all of that very nice and tightly for them, and allow them to keep using and build their custom applications on Zoho, and of course pull all of that into the BI tool with analytics, which is the quote that Mark was talking about. So there's a number of different things that we can talk about when we dive into this case study. I'll just point to the solutions and outcome area. They've used our marketplace integration to connect Sign, which is our digital signature, right into the CRM in a particular way that allows them to have a process that they really like. They've been able to reduce time on training and manual data entry. They're closing 12% more business, and they have a 60% improvement in their close rates. So a lot of really powerful things that are happening, and again, more success that we're really happy to see from Call Center Sales Pro. So all of these ultimately are different upgrades and updates and that we're making within Zoho One. And one of the things that we want to stress is how, especially like in the services layer, we see that as we make improvements, those services really become very interdependent, and they then push up into the layers above and improve things in those places as well. So there's really this way in which updates that are happening at these different layers compound and really then help to improve in other spaces. Now, we've talked a lot about the product, so now we'll talk quickly about the ecosystem. And when we think about the ecosystem, this has a few components: technology, developers, and partners. When it comes to technology, the different layers that we've been talking about are able to be integrated by third parties at every layer. And when we're able to do integrations at all of these layers, it means that there is this knock-on effect, as we've talked about. Things become really more powerful as we're able to do that. One service that is an example of of seeing this third-party integration is what we're doing on the telephony side. So we now have 100 telephony providers that are integrated into that phone bridge central point of connection that I had talked about earlier. And the results kind of speak for themselves. There's over 30,000 organizations that are using this, and they're doing about 75 million calls from this. So we're really excited to see that, that kind of integration taking off and being so important. Similarly, when we look at something like Zoho Flow, which is our integration platform that is akin to something like Zapier in terms of its ease of use, we have all of these different third-party tools that are that contain all these pre-built integrations that are available pretty much right out of the box. All a customer has to do is just configure them. What is the trigger they want? What is the action they want to execute? They can link different things together. All of this is really powerful, and we're very excited to see this. As we've mentioned, there's a couple of places that customers that we've talked about today have used the marketplace. They've used the marketplace for Twilio. They've used it for digital signing. And so there's over 1,000 solutions from the ecosystem that enhance the power of Zoho One through our marketplace. When we look at developers, we know that it's not only important to be able to meet end user needs and provide them flexibility and customization options, but we go the step further and provide the developer tools so that developers are able to create, extend, and integrate at every layer of the stack. We have over 200,000 developers in the Zoho ecosystem, and these developers also really appreciate that we're able to offer no-code, low-code, and pro-code tools. You know, just because somebody's a professional developer and can write scripts in Java and everything else doesn't mean they always want to, right? So by giving them an integration platform like Flow, it makes it very easy to reduce their workload and allow them to spend more time on the bigger projects that really really demand more of their attention. They're also able, you know, sometimes these developers or people that are IT people, they're actually also able to turn things over more to customers, which obviously is appreciated. So there's a lot of great things happening in the developer space. And finally, when it comes to partners, we have a few different kinds of partners. There are technology partners, implementation partners, distribution partners. There are also system integration partners. These partners are really important. 2 of the 3 customers we talked about have used partners to help enable them to be successful. So we are very proud of our growing partner relationships and the way that they're able to serve our customers and work with us to make our product as good as possible. So that is the ecosystem, and this brings us to a close here where we can just say generally, where are we headed? We've talked about all of these different layers of the technology stack and all of the different improvements that we've made to the technology stack. Where we're going is ultimately delayering the stack. We are getting to a place where we are trying to make it very difficult to see where one app starts and another begins, where one app ends and a service has taken over, or where you think you're using one service, but it's relying actually on 3 other services to do this new thing that you really like. We think that this is ultimately what unification is all about, and it's why we invest so heavily in all of these areas and want to share what we're doing in all of these areas, because we think that this is what is going to make and continue to make Zoho one wonderful platform, one wonderful operating system that organizations can run their entire business on and see all of the success that they are hoping to find. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. Again, I've been Taylor Backman, and I've been very happy to walk you through this. This release is coming out on October 19th, and again, we ask that you do not share this recording or any of the information within it until the release date. So thank you again very much for your time. We'll talk to you soon.